Welcome to FireWatch. I'm your host, Ronald Campbell. Earlier in June of this year, the Raleigh Professional Firefighters Association hosted their Fire Ops 101 class at the Keeter Fire Training Center. Joining us today to talk about Fire Ops 101 is Association President, Captain Keith Wilder. Captain, thanks for joining us on FireWatch.
Thank you for having me back, Ron.
Okay, so before we talk about Fire Ops 101, talk to us a little bit about the association. How long has it been in existence?
We've been around since circa 1935, 36, somewhere along in there. We were formed back then. We went through a reformation around 1985, and so we've been around for quite a while.
And so you've been around for a long time, and I know a lot of folks have ideas in their head about what an association is, but the Raleigh Professional Firefighters Association is much more than your standard quote-unquote union. What are some of the things that you do in the community that most people don't realize you do?
Well, that's a good point. We produce concerts. We're the producer, and we rent the venue, we hire the artist, and we sell the tickets to the concerts. That's our revenue stream. And of course, we're a firefighter advocate group, but we do provide a lot of different funding to many different types of charitable organizations within the community here in Raleigh, as well as Wake County and in other counties. The Battered Women's Shelter is one of those. We also are a big supporter of the UNC Burn Center at Chapel Hill and their Camp Celebrate, which is the burn camp for children. And just recently, one of the most recent things we did was provide the birthday cakes for the 100-year anniversary birthday bash downtown.
So Keith, when our office gets these phone calls in about these concerts that are being put on by the Professional Association, this is a legitimate event, correct?
Absolutely legitimate.
And so you're using the funding in part to fund some of these efforts in the community for education and for other activities, correct?
Absolutely. One of the charities that I am most proud to be associated with, we got in at the ground level when this thing first took off, is the Dance Like No One's Watching Gala. And it is basically a prom or a formal night out for folks who may be cognitively or physically impaired, or someone who just felt ostracized at a younger age and just was not able or was not willing to attend a formal event such as a high school prom.
So part of the funds that you raise at this concert that you put on, you use towards events such as the Fire Ops 101.
Sure.
So that way it's at no cost to the taxpayer.
Sure.
It's completely funded by the association. And my understanding is this is the second time you've done this. Tell us about the first time you held Fire Ops 101. How did that go?
Well, the planning stages for the first time was probably the most difficult part of pulling this thing off. I started well in advance of the date, and I enlisted the help of the chief, obviously, and I needed to get his blessings to be able to do this at our training center. And then I got help from several other captains in the department, and we put together a host of events that we wanted to try to run these participants through, and then we kind of narrowed things down, and then I filled the gaps with what would we do during break times, and then some of the events that would be a little more physically stressful, we made sure we followed that up with something that was not physically stressful to give people an opportunity to wind down a little bit, get their heart rate down, and also to have plenty of time to have refreshment breaks and rehydration breaks.
Because my understanding is the day that you held this the first time, it was really, really hot. And so I think those downtime after the physical part were badly needed by the participants.
It was, but that's the way it is in real life. Firefighters don't have an option to pick the weather that they want to work in.
Well, I think that's a great example. So you did it the first time, and then you moved forward. How long ago did you do the first Fire Ops?
It was in 2010, and the entire planning phase probably took 3 months. And then it was obviously much easier this time because pretty much we no need to reinvent the wheel. All we need to do was tweak it a little bit.
So this time for Fire Ops 101 Part 2, how did you tweak it to make it different than the first time?
Well, this time the greatest change was that we added members of media, print and video, and they were a great asset to the program. They brought in their own cameras, they brought in a different perspective, they asked a lot of really great questions. And we also brought in the mayor's son as a member of our citizen group, just to have someone from the citizens of Raleigh to represent that group.
So before we talk about the actual day of and what kind of activities you did, why is it so important to the association and to the fire department as a unit that this event is held? What did you hope to to gain by holding this event?
Well, there are many people who watch TV and they think they know a lot about the fire service, but in reality they don't. Hollywood portrays us much different than how our jobs truly are, and the greatest thing we wanted to achieve here was that the policymakers, our city council members, would get a better understanding of our jobs and the department that they're responsible for funding, that they're responsible for signing off on policies for, just various things along those lines that would affect firefighters as well as the department as a whole.
Well, and then you get that side of it with the policymakers, and then by bringing in the print and video media, I guess the add there is that now you have a voice in the community who understands a little bit better about what it is firefighters have to do.
In a matter of about 30 seconds, they can reach hundreds of thousands of people, and there's no way I could possibly go out and speak to that many people to get our message out. But so many times we see people in the grocery store and they think we're there on the city's credit card, and that's just not true. You know, we pool our money together every day and decide what we're going to eat, and we pay for our own groceries. But that's just one example.
All right, so take us through the day. What time did it start? What kind of activities did you do? Just sort of walk us through what the participants did.
Well, we began with a wellness check, just the same thing that firefighters would go through at a fire. We checked vitals, and then we did a gear fitting. As you can see, we have some here on the table. And once everyone was through the wellness check and the gear fitting, we moved into an opening ceremony where the folks who had never participated before received a helmet, and we discussed the importance of the helmet and the significance of its color. From that point, we moved into our EMS portion, and that is where we really tout our ranking as one of the top places, if not the top, in the United States to survive a sudden cardiac arrest. Well, they learned some, life-saving skills, and from that point, we moved into our fire scenarios, where we taught them some basic skills that firefighters would use, like pulling hose off a truck, search and rescue, how to use our thermal image cameras, just so many little things that we take for granted as firefighters because it's just a job that we do instinctively. We taught them these skills so that at the end of the day, we could have them put those skills together in a scenario, an actual live scenario. But in the meantime, we fed everybody lunch. I think everyone really enjoyed the lunch. And we also ran them through our search maze, which was it's a trailer that is, it was actually purchased with joint funding, federal grant funding, and city funds. But it's a trailer that's designed to teach firefighters how to stay calm, how to escape in an area of diminishing clearance with no visibility. It's just a very good training tool that was used to teach them that skill. And then we also set up a live scenario of our hazmat monitoring equipment, and we also did a USAR display. The overall theme for this particular FireOps 101 event was more brains than brawn. I know in the first FireOps 101 we showed how physically demanding and how taxing it is on your body, but in this case we really wanted to demonstrate how important it is to have well-educated people in the fire service.
So of those scenarios that you just mentioned, from the search maze down to the hazmat to the USAR, which of those did you think that the participants had the most difficulty with either completing or even just getting an understanding of what it is the fire department has to do?
Obviously the search maze. Again, you're in a zero visibility environment. You never know where that wall's going to bend or make a 90-degree turn, or if the walls around you are going to start to close in. And those are real-life situations that firefighters find themselves in. Some where firefighters actually have to come out of their air pack while maintaining the seal around their face to stay on air, and then push their air pack through a hole and then crawl their body through that hole.
Did you have any of your participants just get in and be like, I can't do this? Did you have any, or did they all push through and complete?
To my knowledge, I did not hear one single comment about anyone having any issues with being too confined. I did hear a lot of comments when they came out on the other end that were like, whoo, but
they all made it through.
But they all made it through, and that's the whole point of FireOps 101. We want everyone to complete it. Every participant has a shepherd that is there not only to guide them through the process, but to help them with a task so that they complete the task. As I tell everyone during our little 2-hour training class that we have, this FireOps 101 class is more about conversation than it is about the physical activity. This is your opportunity to tell our policymakers things that you would not, under normal circumstances, be able to just go up to them and tell them. This is an opportunity for you to answer questions that they will have. It's more about the conversation. But once the conversation piece is addressed, then it's about making sure they complete the task. It doesn't matter how old you are or what your physical ability level is. We have that shepherd there to make absolute, positively sure that you complete the task and you complete the course.
So it sounds like that everything was kind of culminating to a final exercise. So you were kind of building to the final live scenario where you had hopefully live fire, you had some searching going on, all kinds of different activities. Tell us about that.
That's exactly right. We put our participants on engines and we allowed them to respond from just down the street. They got the full effect of pulling up to a building, seeing the smoke, seeing flames, and hearing the sirens in the background. You know, we try to get their adrenaline pumping a little bit. There are certain participants that are assigned certain tasks, and each participant has to perform that task just as we would on the fire ground. We're like a machine. Every single part is working for the final outcome. When the participants arrived, they and their shepherds immediately jumped on their task, and in the end we had victims that were rescued. We had ventilation that had been performed. We had fire that had been suppressed. We had searches on top of searches that had been completed, and we had a lot of people coming out with a different perspective of what it takes not only to be a firefighter, but what it takes to do the job of a firefighter without hesitation, for fear of your own safety, to save your fellow man.
So if they're going to do these live simulations, are there things that are being done to make sure that the participants are going to stay safe throughout this event?
Absolutely. Of course, as I mentioned, there's the well check at the very beginning when we get a baseline vitals, and then throughout the day we've got paramedics that were provided by Wake County EMS. I want to give a shout out to them. Appreciate them participating, and they were there to ensure that we had a paramedic level of care on scene at all times. But then again, when you're teaching the firefighter skills, once in a while there is a mishap. And there is the opportunity where someone could have gotten hurt. Of course, we had a safe event, but we have to take into consideration that firefighting is a dangerous job. It's just inherently dangerous, and we're in the contingency business. When something goes wrong, we can't call someone else. We are the help, and we have to figure it out.
So moving forward, you've done 2 now. Do you see the association doing this in the future?
I sure hope so, Ron. As long as I am the president, as long as I have any say in what goes on, I will continue to push this as hard as I can. But I should back up and say that I'll push to get the funding for it. Obviously, it's not cheap. I think this particular class cost us somewhere around $2,500. But I'll continue to push for the funding and then push to have this class in place. Obviously, we have a chief that's very receptive. It's a win-win for everyone. And I really want to thank the participants for coming out, because if they hadn't volunteered their time, again, it was a Saturday, I had to take time away from their families and their personal lives, but if they hadn't come out, we wouldn't have a program. So it takes the money, it takes the department and association working together, but it also takes the participants agreeing to come out and participate.
Well, it sounds like it was a great event. It sounds like the participants learned a lot. It sounds like the firefighters associated with it were able to provide a lot of insight to those folks. And we appreciate you taking the time to come in and talk to us about FireOps 101.
Thank you for having me, Ron.